All right. Hello, ladies. This podcast is designed exclusively for you. This is her talk show where we dive into inspiring thoughts, ideas, and stories, all with one purpose: to empower and uplift women like you. I am Sabrina Victoria, your host and guide on this journey of self-discovery and growth. I invite you to hit that subscribe button, follow, like, and share. Together, we are creating a vibrant community of empowered women. Get ready to unleash your brilliance. Her talk show starts now.
We come to you every day with the best speakers, relationship coaches, spiritual mentors, trailblazers, business owners, authors, young hustlers, podcasters, entrepreneurs, fitness trainers, therapists, financial advisors, and more. We ask our guests one question: what do you know that I don't know? Get ready, because today's guest is about to change the way you view your world. This is Her Talk Show, hosted by Sabrina Victoria.
Right before we got into the live, I was talking to Jessica. I'm like, what are we trying to do here? And then we both paused, and I'm like, let's take over the world.
I love it.
I want to thank everyone who's already jumping on live. Thank you for being here, for joining us today for this episode of Her Talk Show. We have had over 500 women grace this stage, and we are adding another one to the list today. If you're listening live, welcome. And if you're listening on the replay, make sure you hashtag replay so we can send you some love in the comments. Either way, if you are watching us, please share this video so we can get more eyes and more ears on the awesome content that we're about to share today. Today, I'm talking to yet again another amazing woman, Jessica Sato. She envisions a world where women globally are free to use their unique skills, expertise, and voice to create opportunities for themselves and others. Yes, entrepreneurship is the way forward for women as they drive economic growth and promote social impact in their communities and beyond. After a 10-year stint as a leadership development expert, owning 3 other successful businesses and a life-changing assignment in Ethiopia, she built a transformational business that advises female founders as they actively seek to incorporate purpose and impact into their business strategy. Yes.
Hey.
Get it. I'm so excited to talk to you, Jessica.
I'm excited to be here.
Thank you for taking some time.
Glad to. I love talking about this, so it's going to be a super fun conversation.
I know. I do too. I always joke, you can always tell what someone's thing is, because no matter what the conversation is, it always pivots.
Yes.
Like somebody could be like, I'm really digging some donuts. I'm thinking, and I'll be like, girl, Dunkin' Donuts, do you have any idea how much money? Let's start a franchise. It always goes into something regarding business, entrepreneurship, building, vision, growth.
Yep.
So
totally.
I love topics around this, so I'm super excited. Competitive advantage. That's what we're talking about today.
Yes.
Why are we talking about this? Teach us something. What is this competitive advantage you're talking about?
Yeah. So, this always takes me back. If you grew up in the corporate world, or really honestly any job, and you were in an interview and they said something to the effect of, what makes you different, or why should we hire you? This is the question for entrepreneurs. Like, what is your competitive advantage? The thing that makes you different and draws people to you. And, for a long time, even in my corporate career, well into my entrepreneurial years, I've been at this for close to 2 decades now. And I hated that question. Like, I could never figure out how to actually answer it. Like, it always just felt super trite. Like, okay, everybody could say these things. It wouldn't mean anything. And then I realized that when you talk about your mission, whether that's some big social mission, whether that's a narrative shift that you're trying to create in the world, whether it's just something that you're very passionate about, or the why behind your business, that is the thing that sets you apart. Because when you are focused and using that as your lens, all of a sudden, all the ways that you do your business, the way you show up in your business, how you sell, all of it comes back to this. And so people can get a deep sense of who you are and what they're going to get when you talk about your mission. And so to me, that is the thing that really gets you to shift and stand out in the marketplace.
Why is this so important?
Well, let's be honest. There are many, many entrepreneurs. There are many, many businesses. Many of them are doing largely the same thing, right? Trying to solve similar problems. So how do you draw the right people to you? I think that's number one. Part of the competitive advantage is it really hones in on who resonates with you and who do you resonate with. So really separating and finding your space in the world. And let's be honest, the marketplace is busy. So there has to be something that creates some differentiation, some separation from others, even if you're doing largely the same work. And it's never going to be about price. It's never going to be about sort of the way you talk about the problems. It's always going to go to something deeper. So if people don't know who you are, what you stand for, some of those are values-based questions, but there's this other piece about the purpose behind the business and the impact that you're trying to create in the world. That is going to be the thing that creates some demarcation in the industry that you happen to be serving, so that people can come to you and it's not as difficult to, break through the noise.
Exactly. Break through the noise. And I think a lot of times people think that they're competing with each other, but you're really not. You're competing with like UFOs, cat videos.
You really are.
AI talk, NFTs. Like there's all this, people are just like squirrel and they're just on to the next thing. And if you're not like stop worthy in the scroll.
That's right.
Yeah. People are just scrolling right by. So how does somebody figure this out? I'm thinking of the average person. We have a ton of people listening live right now. And they're like, yeah, I'm a good coach, but like, I don't know what's like my thing. Like, what is my one competitive? How do you figure that out?
Yeah, great question. So, I feel like there's a lot of pressure to come up with the thing. I rarely think it's the thing. And let's be honest, it also evolves over time. So I think it's worth doing the work to get a deep sense of who you are and what you stand for in the world. So, where I always have people start is to go back to basics. What is it that you love to do? Where are the needs in the world? What's the thing that, you see that thing on Facebook all the time about what, if you could talk about anything for 30 minutes, what would it be? Right? That's kind of the thing. Like, what is the thing that you can dig into, really sink your teeth into, and that you don't really get tired about it? Right? Like, I could talk for days about impact and really sort of the changing landscape of what we're seeing for women globally, particularly in the developing world. But that came through an evolution. So I always, like I said, I go back to some of those foundational things of, what are you passionate about? What do you like to talk about? Where are your skills, talents, abilities, your unique experiences? And start to see like, where are the commonalities that are coming to the forefront? And then just sit with it. Like, you cannot force it. Like I wrote an article quite a while ago about how we need to stop trying to find our passion. Because it's really an excavation and it's kind of a look back, right? And it's informed by all the things that happen. So, just getting a sense for what's that thing that kind of lights up your soul, and start there. And then taking that a step further and bringing it into the business, where do those skills and those passions come together? So, if you're really passionate about coding, for example, well, how can you use that for good? How can you engage with other people who maybe don't have access to the same resources and experiences that you have, that you can serve in a really unique way? So you can start to see how those things that you're naturally good at, the things that you love to do, start to break through the surface. And that gives you a good starting point to at least launch from.
Yeah. I really like how you kind of started out with the fact that it's always going to be, it's ever evolving.
Yeah.
Because I think that a lot of times, at least from my own experience, not trying to project, is like this fear of committing. Like, I don't know if I really want to commit to those
Yeah.
words or 4
Yeah.
sentences because I don't know if that's going to be for me forever. And like,
Yeah.
that's the thing. It's not going to be you
Yeah.
forever. But like commit and then pivot as you go versus sitting in this stagnant of like, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and I think, if you think about your own entrepreneurial journey, sort of that evolution, what you started out caring about, it's probably not that you don't care about those things anymore, but as you've worked with more people, as you've had conversations with more women, as you've served in different ways, it becomes more informed, right? So that's where that evolution is. So, if I look back at my own life, for example, I can see that there was always a path that's connected to the developing world, right? So I grew up in Egypt. I lived there for 3.5 years, and then I studied abroad in college, speak Arabic, etc. And I found myself working and serving and really trying to pay attention to what's happening there. There was always that thread, but it wasn't until a random aha moment where I just was quiet that this idea of really taking a look at what's happening in the developing world for women specifically around entrepreneurship, that all those threads tied together into this really beautiful little rope. And that's what I mean by the evolution, like, and by looking backward, right? It takes that kind of a journey to see it come to life.
Yes. And the older we get, right, the more that we can kind of see
Yeah.
that
Sure.
the workings,
Yeah.
the workings in the work.
Well, and if I can just add one thing, I think that's why when you're just starting out in business, I always say, it's going to take like 3, 4, 5 years to kind of settle in for real. Like, you might have early success, or maybe you're struggling in those first couple of years to really figure out like what you're trying to do. But that is part of the evolution. That's part of the process of testing and trialing and making sure that, yeah, this feels really good, or, oh no, I thought that was going to feel good, but it doesn't actually feel good. So I think there's a level of patience that also comes with this process.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. And I feel like a lot of this too that you are speaking about, it seems to really sort of morph into, possibly correct me if I'm wrong, but like your mission
Mm.
for your business.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Absolutely. So
Mm.
I do a lot of work around TEDx and helping people really come up with their big idea. And I sort of think of these as all sort of lumped together, right? Your purpose, your big idea for the world. These are sort of those core foundational things that then get used by you in the business. So we start to weave them together. So if I'm thinking about, a client of mine, for example, she is passionate because of her own life experience at helping families who have a loved one struggling with substance use disorder. Her mission is rooted in her big ideas about what is necessary to help address this problem, is rooted in her own experience, and it ties together with her own skills and abilities and expertise. And she's bringing that mission to life because of that big idea, because of this larger purpose that she has. So you can start to see how it tightens together and then becomes the thing that you talk about, becomes the way in which you do all the things for your business.
Yes, 100. Why do you think that having a mission is so relevant to growing a business?
Well, sort of like vision, I feel like it's a bit of the North Star. Like, I don't really know. I mean, there's certainly people who are out there and who are successful, who are just running a business, providing a service, making money. But for me, the mission is a grounding force. It anchors you into something that allows you to see the direction you're going, and really amplifies or tries to highlight the impact that you're trying to make. As a strategist, I don't know how you function without that, because it's sort of like the thing that helps you along the road. And I'm not talking about this from a, formalized mission statement. Like, I grew up in corporate leadership development. We did a lot of work around mission and vision. I think those are important. And, you can wordsmith till the cows come home. But what I'm really talking about is, what's the heartbeat of the business? What is it that you're really trying to accomplish in the world? And if you don't have a sense for what that is, you have no idea if you're actually being successful, right? So that mission gives you that anchoring point that allows you to see, like, wow, okay, I really am making an impact, or I really am moving the needle on whatever the issue is that happens to be important to you and that's tied up in the way you do your business.
Yeah, for sure. I want to touch on this subject regarding purpose and profits. I'm seeing this, more and more, since we're talking about the success of business. We all know that for a business to be successful, there has to be profit.
Yep.
But I think a lot of times, and I'm going to box us in a little bit, not purposely, but females, I feel as if have this issue regarding mixing purpose and profit. And they feel like, if I really have a purpose to help, they have a hard time connecting that with money.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem real or humble or truthful or moral, even. If they're asking for an exchange of monetary value for, everything that they're giving. So how do we as women take our competitive advantage? We're creating a mission around this beautiful business that we want to create, that is purpose driven. And then also find a way to, like, mentally and emotionally make it make sense, to make it profitable.
This is such a good question. And funny enough, I just wrote a blog post on this very subject. I think of this as sort of like that Mother Teresa complex.
Yes.
Right? I get that. Like, I've been there before. Like, there is a tension, I think, in women in particular. I do think it exists in men too, but not to the same extent. Because women are by nature very communal, and we are usually, I would say the vast majority of the time, really trying to move the needle for not just ourselves, but the people around us. So when I think about that frame of reference, I think, well, what does it actually take to create the impact? And sometimes you can do that just through your time. Sometimes you can find other ways, but as a business owner, you can do both, right? And the more money that you make, and I'm not saying like go out and be egregious and, price gouge. I'm not talking about any of that. But when you make money, when your business is actually profitable, that's when you can actually have more impact. It creates a way to build partnerships. Like, the analogy I like to use is, if we're all, moving in our own lane, if we're all driving toward something, when we're making a bigger and bigger impact, those lanes start to merge together into a big highway. So for me, the way I have had to mentally and emotionally shift this paradigm for myself is, if I really want to make a massive difference, if I really want to shift the narrative, the way we support women globally, then I have to make money, because it takes money to do that. And, the reality is, a business has to make money. There is nothing wrong with making money. And when we acknowledge that, those two pieces, we need money to make the impact, and it's okay to make money, and there's, I'm sure, a lot of work that we have to do to get to those two places, that's when we start to see some of that magic happen. So I really want people to walk away recognizing that your business does exist to make money, and the money enables the impact. And the other thing I'll say here too that I think happens a lot is we think, well, I'm fine talking about the kind of work I do. I'm fine talking about, how I help people. But I'm really sheepish when it comes to inviting people into that process, right? Into the sales process.
Mhm.
But when I think about it in a different way, which is that the thing that you have, your sale, your product, your service, et cetera, that is the cure to someone's cancer. And if you actually had the cure to cancer, you would not be quiet about it. You would be out there selling it on every street corner because you knew people needed it. And I think if we start to think about our business and the subsequent impact that comes with that, like that, now it doesn't become oh, I'm selfish. Oh, I should, be impoverished. It means, wow, when I bring more people into this process, I'm helping more people, which means the impact is greater.
Yeah, 100. And I think a lot of times that could be one of the things that we are missing is, in order to keep doing this purpose-driven journey or be on this purpose-driven journey, it requires funding.
It does. Absolutely. And, one thing I'll say is, there's sort of phases to when this sometimes makes more sense, like impact driven work makes more sense than others, right? So, if you happen to be a startup and you have some venture capital funding, or you just happen to have a lot of funding right from the get go, it's not as difficult to balance these two elements. But there's a period in the middle where everything is tight, resources are limited, funding, may be sporadic. And you can still be focused on impact, but you do have to create a real intense focus on profitability and revenue generation. So it's not that it goes by the wayside, but there's a tension that exists there. And then at some point you cross over one of the humps that are, many of them that come later down the road, where it becomes a little bit easier. The resources are a little bit freer. The money's flowing a little bit differently, which means the impact looks a little bit different. So I encourage people to really think about where they are in that spectrum and be gentle and have grace with themselves, because sometimes you can do more than at other times in the life cycle of your business. Oh, I can't hear you.
This made me think about, as you were speaking, and it might be just storytelling here. I don't know if you'll necessarily have any feedback, but when I first, in the very, very beginning, of my coaching career, I was in health and wellness in the very beginning, and then I shifted into narcissistic abuse. I had exited an abusive relationship, and I had created a program called How to Leave Your Husband in 365 Days. It was like my exact blueprint on how I left my ex. And I was selling it for $47. It was enormous. It probably took me, it was my first one, like video program. So it literally took me forever. Like it took me like 6 months or something to record and like upload, and so time consuming. And I was so excited to be gifting this to my community that I just love and adore and had been speaking to for so long on a YouTube channel. And the backlash that I got of women are supposed to be supporting women, how dare you, was so strong that I almost left coaching.
What was the backlash though?
How dare you charge us?
Oh,
how dare you charge us $47? I'm like almost getting emotional.
Yeah.
But isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So like exactly the fear that
Mhm.
we have happened.
Yeah.
I mean, early on, where I was still fragile and I was still scared and I
Yeah.
was still, um, so much so that I completely stopped talking about it and I shifted. I stayed in that arena for maybe about a year and a half.
Mhm.
I did a lot of one-on-ones. I pushed hard for that program for maybe about 3 to 4 weeks and then just stopped talking about it. Um, and I did make some money off of it, like actually a pretty good amount.
Mhm.
But it almost threw my entire journey for a different, like I almost quit everything.
Yeah. That's, I think, all too common. And there's I don't know if there's a really good way to respond to this,
Yeah.
but the way I try to think about it and the way I coach my own clients is that the knowledge that you gained in order to be able to have the expertise to share didn't come for free.
Mm,
And I think women and people, right, need to recognize that even though they're struggling, even though they're hurting, even though they want out and they need that help, that the person who's doing the teaching or the, content delivery or whatever that might look like, that experience didn't come for free.
yeah.
And you may disagree about the price, but I think from a women helping women perspective, we actually should be thinking about it the other way. How can I elevate and honor the experience that this person went through, and and I'm happy to pay or invest my own dollars to learn and shorten the cycle for myself, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
But you're right. I don't think, sometimes I think when you're hurting or in dire need, there's this, I don't want to call it a sense of entitlement. I think that's maybe too strong or too, I don't even know what the right word is, but I think we have to have a recognition that for ourselves as the provider, our experience, our expertise, our skills, knowledge, etc., did not come for free.
Yeah.
It came with time, came with actual dollars, usually some blood, probably a lot of sweat and tears. And that is of value. And if you can shorten the cycle for someone, it's worth
Yeah.
it. It's
Yeah.
worth it.
Yeah, and that was my exact thought process on that was, "Hey, I don't want you to have to be sitting in this mess for as long as I did."
Yeah.
I want you to be able to get out sooner than I did.
Yeah.
What are some limiting beliefs that you see around this arena as far as, I just shared one of mine, as far as, exactly what we were just talking about,
Mm.
not necessarily feeling comfortable putting a dollar amount to our teachings. What are some other limiting beliefs that maybe you have encountered
Mhm.
that you've gotten over or maybe you've seen? And how can we shift that? Is there any other one or ones that you'd like to mention?
Yeah. So I think one sort of similarly connected is just about the price point itself. I have I have seen time and time again, I've done this myself, like we are undervaluing, right? So
Mhm.
this is more than just don't charge, but what is the right price point? And we do have a tendency as women to undervalue and therefore underprice our work. I think we think the limiting belief is, oh, everybody already knows this, or this is super common, when in reality, it is not in the slightest. And it has value beyond just the immediate effect. So I think that's one limiting belief, is just an awareness that our knowledge that we think, comes so easy to us, or maybe that we've learned, isn't common. And it is going to be, like I said before, sort of the cure to someone's cancer. I think that's one limiting belief, is underpricing. Um, I think the other one is going back to what we talked about before, that it is okay to charge money for your work. And that if you don't do that, you're really minimizing the impact. So, I really want to see this narrative shift with women about valuing their stuff. This is not about charge your worth. I actually am not a fan of that phrase at all. It's very hard, right? Because if you have any kind of trauma, big T, little t trauma, etc., that sense of worth may not actually match the reality, right? So I would really rather we be focused on charging for value. What is the value, and the immediate value and the longer term value, the ripple effect value, right? And we factor all that in. That's, when I think about how to help people create more impact, that's where it is. Really charging for the value of what you're doing and bringing people into your circle who can give you a little chat about whether or not you're doing that. I mean, in my own circle, I am that person. I'm like, your prices are too low. You're undercharging for that. And it's become a little bit of a joke because I'm always saying that, but I genuinely believe that when we look at what women are doing in the world, they are doing amazing things, and they are not reaping anywhere near the benefit financially, and therefore not the freedom, the flexibility, etc., that our male counterparts are. So we have got to overcome this piece of the equation.
Yeah. And how do we do that? Like, how does somebody sit when, they have like I just did this with our, my fiance and I run a sober community, and we had, I don't even remember what the first initial prices were anymore. Let's just say like 5,000 and 8,000. We sell 2 programs, and, we raised them like a couple grand. And then just recently, like within the last 6 months, we raised them again to 10 and 20. And we felt comfortable doing that because we've already been in the arena for 3 years now.
Yep.
So the expertise behind the way we speak, the way we flow, the way we teach is at that level now. But to be priced at that price in the very beginning, I don't know if I would have felt comfortable. However, because the prices were so low, it also was not sustainable.
Yeah.
So we almost quit. And if it wasn't for us having a bunch of side gigs and a bunch of just other means of creating income, because I'm just naturally I'm naturally just create money. It could very easily have fallen apart.
Yeah.
So how do we balance that? How do we balance what makes sense and then also price it so that we can live?
Yeah. Oh, this is such a good conversation. So I think there's a couple things. One is just acknowledging that what you start out with, your initial price point, you have to be comfortable saying it out loud.
Yes.
Right. So if, like you said, if you would have, jumped out to 10, 15K right off the bat, yeah, you probably wouldn't have felt comfortable. And that energy, the confidence isn't going to translate, and therefore it's not going to work for you. So I think there's a period where you price it and you probably know that it's underpriced, but it's the only number that feels comfortable for you to say out loud. And so that's the number you say out loud. But then you have to keep creating evidence for yourself. Like, you have to look at what kind of results are people getting from this program? Are we transforming lives? Are we, shifting whatever the thing is that we're trying to do? And when we're doing that, all of a sudden it reinforces or re-amplifies some of that confidence that we need to go to the next price point. And so to me, it's a little bit of an incremental process. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. Like, I don't know anybody who came out of the gate with like some super high ticket offer and could say that with confidence, unless maybe they just had the background that came from a different place that enabled them to do it. But I would say that's not the norm. So I think we start with saying the price that we're comfortable saying out loud. Then we're looking for evidence. We increase our price. We look for more evidence. We increase our price. And there comes a place where you can start to see like, okay, I'm not getting as many yeses, but that's okay because the way I've priced this requires fewer, right? So I think recognizing also sort of the nature of your business model, right? And this is where some of the strategy of being a business owner comes in, looking at what are my financial goals? What do I need in order to pay myself a proper salary to run this business, to have the impact I want to have? What's that number? And then let's work it backwards. What do I need to sell at what price point in order to make that happen? So there's some fluidity here that I think we have to be comfortable with. And I think the other part of this is that, like you said, you started at one place and slowly moved to the other. We do have to be willing to be a little bit uncomfortable. Like when we're saying the price, it shouldn't be like this insane tightening of the body where we just feel such extreme resistance, right? But we probably shouldn't feel like super comfortable either. Like you'll know because there's a little bit of discomfort there. And that's in that discomfort that you know that you're probably in the right place.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Can you talk a little bit about, somebody was telling me this. I was on the phone with I don't even know how to describe him. It doesn't even matter. But we were talking about pricing, and he was talking about value driven and how he sells $10,000 to $20,000 packages for other companies. That's what it is. So other companies hire him as like the phone guy. So they run funnels and ads. And then the calendar link that a person would get after watching a webinar, a free webinar, is his calendar. Okay. They book on his calendar. He closes them. He works for like 10 different companies to sell high ticket. And he was talking about something about less, right? Like less people sign up, but then the this is what he was talking about. And this is what I want you to dive into. People give $5,000 effort if they pay $5,000. They give $10,000 effort if they pay $10,000. And they give $50 effort if they pay $50.
Yeah. Commitment is in the transaction.
Yes, that's what he was really touching on. And we were talking about my mastermind because I charge $47 for my mastermind. And I told him all the things that are in it. And he's like, people are going to give 40. And meanwhile, he was not knocking my community down. My community is absolutely phenomenal. They show up absolutely on fire, legit. But it was a question, right? Because he was trying to help. He was trying to elicit like me thinking bigger and envisioning bigger. And he's like, how much more effort would there be if you were say charging $297 a month?
Yeah, this was a tough one because it sort of depends on your goals and what you're trying to accomplish, right? And it also depends on your audience. So if you have a large audience and you're sort of working a volume-based model, $47 may be just right, even if it's packed with really amazing value. And that is perfectly okay. If you are trying to move people, through your ladder, your sales ladder, your value ladder, and, you're jumping from 47 to 10K, that might be a leap. And you may not have necessarily, I'm not saying you don't, may not necessarily have the right people in your pipeline. So I think you have to always go back to, okay, what are my goals? And in that is sort of around those impact pieces and revenue. It's both. And who can I best serve with my offers? Who needs this? And, where are they in their own journey? So it's like a whole bunch of factors that are coming into play. So it's not just, they're only going to put out $47 of effort. I don't know if I would have articulated it like that. I do believe commitment does happen in the transaction, and the bigger the transaction, the bigger the commitment level. But, I've had lower ticket offers as well. And, some people are not as committed, and then there are people who are super committed. So I think sometimes the price doesn't tell the whole story. Certainly doesn't tell the whole story about the value. It doesn't tell the whole story about the person who's doing the buying. Doesn't tell the whole story about you as the person doing the selling. But I think if you are constantly reevaluating, is this offer at this price point meeting or doing the thing that I need it to do at the level I need it to do? And if the answer to that is yes, then great. Keep on. Don't fix it. It's not broken. But if it's not, and this is where I was getting to with, the business model, you need to know your numbers. So if you don't have a revenue goal, you need to get one stat. And if you do have one, have you done the math? Like, what is it going to take? Is your business model actually viable? So if you're saying, I want to hit 100K, for example, and your offer is $47, you got to get a lot of people.
Yeah.
So you just have to kind of look at a bunch of different factors and then pull them together into a cohesive picture of what's actually happening in the business and how it lines up with those longer term goals and near term goals too, quite frankly.
Yeah. I love that you're talking about money. Have you always been like that, or is that something that you learned to?
No, honestly, I used to hate sales. I didn't like talking about money. I couldn't read a balance sheet. I didn't know what a profit and loss statement was. But here's what I've learned. Knowledge about your numbers is power. And you don't have to know, you don't have to have CPA level knowledge about your numbers. But you do need to understand, where's your money coming from? Do you have enough? And what is it going to look like 2, 3, 4 months from now? And when you know that, then you can be really strategic about your decision making. I have a great example. I was on my first real vacation in October of last year. My family and I went to Europe for 2 weeks, and I was sort of freaking out. Like, oh my gosh, my business is a consult-based business. I do a lot of one-on work, intensive stuff with clients. And how am I going to make money in those 2.5 weeks? So I sat down with my own financial coach, and she said, okay, let's do the math. She said, you're probably not as far away or in near dire straits as you think you are. And in doing that, it was very clear, like, oh, you need to get 2 new clients in this 4-week period. Can you do that? I'm like, oh, yeah, I've got, X number of consults lined up. I have these, marketing initiatives going out. I think that's possible. It was totally possible. I did it, went on vacation, had a great time. But I would have been super stressed and not known what kind of activity I needed to do to ramp up to get me where I needed to be. So that's why I say it's so powerful to know, like, what's happening financially in your business, what's happening from like a metrics perspective. Like, you don't need to, be an Excel junkie. You don't need to be diving into QuickBooks all the time, but you do need to have a pretty robust understanding of what is happening in your business.
Yeah.
In order to understand what level of activity you have, or how you need to ramp up, or maybe you can slow it down a little, give yourself a break.
Yeah, absolutely. I think numbers is the number one thing.
Yeah.
And holding yourself accountable. I actually have a graph that my laptop is sitting on right now, where I track my numbers every day. So every single day I'm writing down when money plops in. Yep. I'm writing it down all day, just writing down my numbers. Yep. And then I goal it. I at the end of the day, and then it goes on another sheet where it's just days. Yeah. And then that equals a weekly. So I can see how much I made absolutely per day, and then how much money I made for the week. And then that goes into monthly, which then goes into quarterly. But it's a beautiful vision.
Yes.
To be able to see the ups and the downs, right? And sometimes what's so amazing about it is sometimes, like, my lowest ticket offer of something that I sell is $9. And sometimes I wake up in the morning and I have thousands of dollars that plopped in overnight. And sometimes I have $9.
Yes.
And it's so interesting because I'll wake up and I'll just be like, oh, 9.
9.
Oh my God. And then by the end of the day, it's a beautiful number. But it's those little tiny things, right? It's the little 9s and 47s and 127 and 400 and 10,000. It's like all the things mixed in is what creates really beautiful numbers for us at the end of the week, at the end of the month, at the end of the quarter. So it's not how you're doing hourly or even how you're doing daily. It's how you're doing weekly, monthly, and quarterly is what really matters. But all that matters, right?
It does. It does. And I think the other part to that is knowing what it takes to get to those numbers.
Yeah.
Right. So sort of like you, I have like my own little spreadsheet and I'm tracking my activity to get the sale.
I love that.
Right. Like how many people am I reaching out to? How many leads does that translate to? How many conversations am I having? How many offers am I making? So it's very clear. Like I could tell you like exactly how much effort I need on average to get to the goal on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis. And I think people overestimate how much work they need to be doing. And that's where this numbers and the knowledge around it become really powerful because most of the time we're doing too much. We are grinding too hard. And we are not serving ourselves in that way. We're certainly not serving others. So if you can get some clarity about, how much effort it takes to get you to your goal, then you can really prioritize that kind of activity and ramp up, ramp down when you have sort of anomaly type months, quarters, etc.
Exactly. Yeah. Absolutely beautiful. I could just keep talking about all this. But this has been great. Listen, we have a ton of people watching live. Thank you so much for being here. For those of you watching on the replay, make sure you hashtag replay. But Jessica, if you could do us a huge favor, obviously we have a really good idea of what you do, but if you could just kind of tell us exactly what you do and who should be reaching out to you, those that are watching right now, who do you help? Who should be contacting you?
Great. So I help people, business owners who have a desire to create some kind of social change or some kind of impact that shifts the narrative or shifts the paradigm for their local community or beyond. So, some people might identify themselves as social impact entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs, but to me, it really comes down to people who want to use their business for good. Those are the people, those are the right people. And the work we do together is really making sure that you're really clear on what that mission and purpose is. We build a strategy or refine the strategy around it and then map out exactly how you're going to execute that strategy so that you're having the impact or the paradigm shift, et cetera, that you're really trying to make. So a lot of work around messaging, a lot of work around thought leadership and visibility is a big part of that work together.
Fantastic. And then for those that want to maybe follow you, where do you hang out the most on social media?
Yes, I'm primarily on LinkedIn. And I'm also on Instagram. So you can find me in either place, Jess Sato on LinkedIn and Jessica Sato Coach on Instagram. And then if you want deeper information, you can grab that on my website, which is just jessicasato.com.
Love it. And why do you do what you do?
Thank you for asking this. It goes back to what you read at the very beginning, which is that I really do want to see a world where women globally, not just in developed countries, but globally, are free to use their voice, their unique skills, expertise to really create opportunities for themselves. And my work is centered around female founders and equipping them with what they need in order to be successful so that I can and they can funnel that impact into women who maybe don't have the means or the support available to them in order to do that for themselves. So all of it stems from supporting women to create a ripple effect for women globally.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It's great.
If you resonate with Jessica and all the goodness that she shared, make sure to check her out at jessicasato.com. She predominantly hangs out on LinkedIn and Instagram. We love to connect people here in order to make sure we all continue to rise. That brings us to an end of yet another incredible episode of Her Talk Show. I want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to our amazing guest speaker, Jessica, for her amazing wisdom and inspiration. To each and every one of you, our dedicated listeners, thank you for staying with us into the very end. Your support and engagement means the world to us. Remember to follow, like, and share this podcast with your fellow humans. Join me yet again for another episode of more captivating stories, enlightening thoughts, and empowering ideas. Once again, my name is Sabrina Victoria, and I invite you to join our amazing community, Her Nation, where we to have transformative conversations just like this. Until next time, as always,